17,000 big ones. That's what my property portfolio brings in every single month. Now, before you go saying this guy's a wanker or this guy's some loaded prick, let me explain what that number actually means. Now, you're probably wondering who the hell is this guy? Well, I'm JP. I started investing in my mid to late 20s. I own just over $7 million worth of property across 3 different states. So nice to meet you if it's your first time here. I've only done 6 videos, so I'm kind of a YouTube newbie. Anyway, I've seen firsthand what works because I've done it for me. I've done it for a bunch of other people too. I've bought now 50 properties since starting my own business, buyer's agency. Of course, this guy's selling something. And I've seen what doesn't. I've seen people waste years and years, buy the wrong assets, wrong structure, wrong strategy. I've seen it all. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what that $17,000 actually means, the system behind how I built this little property portfolio of mine, and how you could potentially do something like that for yourself. Well, first things first, when you hear $17,000 a month, you're thinking, oh my gosh, passive income, let's retire. Let's hang up the boots. Time to go to Tulum, start a little shack, build some surfboards. No, that $17,000 a month is actually just what's coming in. You wouldn't believe it if I told you what's coming out. I'm actually losing money. My outgoings sit at probably $25,000 or $26,000. Why would I do that? Have I lost my marbles? Well, the way I look at it is that's the holding costs to service a $7 million property portfolio and a shite ton of debt that's against that. You've probably figured this out by now, but I'm not playing the cash flow game yet. I'm very much playing the capital growth game. And if you've heard me talk before, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, wherever, you know I talk a lot about capital growth. The truth is this: true wealth comes from equity growth, from appreciation, and not from cash flow. Those that focus too early on cash flow and yield and passive income will do themselves out of just that in the long run. Capital growth is the game. Cash flow just keeps you playing it. There is a reason why all the super wealthy people in the world start with capital appreciation assets. Now, I'm not even just talking about property. There's a very, very important reason why people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s typically tend to invest in stocks like Google, Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft. Why? Because people believe they can buy in at 10 and sell out at 20. Because those stocks are considered growth stocks or capital appreciation stocks, however you want to put it. There is some very obvious logic as to why people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s tend not to invest in stocks like BHP or Commonwealth Bank or Coca-Cola or AT&T. And the reason for that is those are dividend stocks or yield or cash flow stocks. So why would they treat property investing any differently? The asset class might be different, but the strategy should remain the same depending on what stage of life you're at. And if you're in the accumulation phase or the build phase of your investment journey, your strategy should be the same across your different asset classes. Again, it's always capital appreciation or capital growth first, transition to wealth preservation and cash flow later. If that sounds crazy, well, I'm going to show you how losing money every month could actually make you really, really wealthy. Let's get into it. But before we do, you can download the Property Wealth Playbook. Again, speaking to the team, we could come up with better names. Hit me in the comments if you got any. Property Wealth Playbook, click the link down below and play on. One thing I know for sure, whenever I meet newbie investors, they're always chasing cash flow or yield. They're saying, oh, it would be great if the property could cover itself. Oh, if I didn't have to cover anything between the rent and the repayments, that would be amazing. Because it feels safe and it feels like, great, if that happens and I can pay down the loan or someone else is paying down the loan for me. But what that's actually doing is it's capping your long-term upside by a lot. Humor me. Let's say, for example, we have a portfolio that is negatively geared. So the example I have in mind is a $1 million portfolio that is growth geared, so it is costing you money every month, but it's growing at 8% compounded. That is an $80,000 gain per year, or roughly $6,500 per month, or just over that. Apply that to an even bigger portfolio of, say, $5 million. That's $400,000 a year of equity growth, or $33,000 per month. Now, of course, not everyone is going to be able to hold these ridiculous numbers, but you can see how this really starts to scale. Compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Now, let's compare that portfolio, that growth portfolio I just shared with you, to a cash flow or yield focused portfolio. A $500 a month positive cash flow property might yield you $6,000 a year. The opportunity cost of a portfolio like that could be $50,000 in equity or growth that we could have gained if we focused on capital growth as opposed to cash flow or yield. And don't come at me with all this regional rubbish about boom hotspot locations. Fine, I own regional property and I'm well aware that those regional locations can go through some strong periods of growth. But to think that they will do the same compounded long-term growth rate as a capital city is probably wishful thinking. Now, don't get me wrong, if you want to go and play the equivalent of day trading, but in the property market, trade in and out of markets every 1, 2, 3 years, be my guest. But that's just not my style of investing. I'm a buy and hold, long-term growth investor. So when people come to me and say, oh, but JP, you can get both, it is possible, but I treat it with a degree of skepticism because there are always trade-offs in property investing. You cannot have your cake and eat it too all the time. You might get a few assets where you can do that with. For example, Brisbane. I was fortunate enough to take advantage of that. But again, it is a capital city market. I bought it for $670,000. It's now renting for $700 and something per week. I'm laughing. I'm getting sidetracked. Let's get back to business. I mean, the real question is, do you want to make $500 a month, $6,000 a year, or do you want to make $50,000 a year? Maybe that $50,000 a year costs you 10, but the upside's still significant, right? I know what I'd choose. So my advice is, if you're just starting out and you're buying a foundational asset and you can afford to do so, prioritize capital city markets first. Buy that foundational asset, and then you can start investing in more speculative or less proven markets, let's call them, in regional parts of the country, which is what I've done too. My first 1 or 2 properties, I've drawn down on those properties at least 3, 4, 5 times to draw out equity and purchase again. So those are the foundational assets. And the reason they're so important is because they need to do so much hard work on their own early on, because you haven't got multiple properties all increasing in value. You've just got 1 or 2 that are going to do all the hard work on their own. Whereas when you have 4, 5, 6 properties, it doesn't actually matter if the growth is weaker across the whole portfolio because you have so many assets working together to increase your equity. So next question to JP is, but what happens if you simply can't afford to go negative every single month? Which is very real, right? People have got lives, they've got families, they've got kids, they want to travel, they want to go have nice dinners. So how do we deal with that? So yes, of course, some people swing too far. They take on too much. You never want to bite off more than you can chew. Do not ignore yield and bleed thousands of dollars monthly if you can't handle it. You must, of course, buy and service your loans and manage your cash flow within your means. When I bought my first regional property, that was actually at a time where I simply couldn't afford to cash flow much out of pocket. I had a limit of $500 to $1,000 a month at an absolute maximum. So what did I do? I said, well, the only option for me to continue to grow my portfolio is to invest in a regional market, which I did. And then after that, I went back to my capital cities. So you must play the ball as it lies. You must play what's in front of you and live within your own means. Because despite what I've said, cash flow is the oxygen or the lifeblood of your portfolio. If you do not maintain or manage your cash flow, you will be knocked out of the game, or you'll have to sell and you have to restructure and reposition your assets, which is fine. It's not the end of the world, but just not a position you want to be in. My advice is run your holding cost numbers. If you can't hold for more than 5 to 10 years, for example, then it's probably too tight. Make sure you factor in rent increases, of course, factor in any drawing down on equity, but run those numbers and that will help you understand whether you can afford to do the capital city proven growth market versus, say, a regional or a cash flow focused investment. And of course, above all else, build your buffers in, your repairs and maintenance buffers, your vacancy rate or your no rent buffers. Every buffer you could think of, have it baked in. Property is a very illiquid asset class. You can't just up and sell it tomorrow and get your money. So once that's all sorted and accounted for and you're holding comfortably, that's when the growth really kicks in. Now, it's come to my attention there are still many of you out there that think that you have to be saving for every deposit, for every property that you're purchasing, which is just incorrect. Recycling and redrawing down on those properties in that portfolio, that is how you scale. For example, you buy a $500,000 property with a $100,000 deposit, and after a few years at 8% growth, for example, it's now worth $650,000. So it has $150,000 worth of equity. At that point, you refinance up to 80%. Of course, you can't refinance up the whole amount. The banks will lend you up to 80% of the property's value, minus your loan amount, of course. Then you extract it. You put that towards funding your deposit, stamp duty, whatever it may be. Maybe you top it up with some cash if it's just your second property. And then you simply rinse and repeat that strategy. Once you get to 2 or 3 properties, it's going to become really easy. And your problem, quote unquote, will no longer be can you generate equity, but can you manage your cash flow effectively to build your asset base? Most people think it's linear. You just buy property, you earn rent, and then you retire. But unfortunately, that's not your one-way ticket to sitting on a beach in Mexico. So let me explain what it is. It's 3 distinct phases. They are build, recycle, and consolidate. So stage 1 is build. That is where we are focused on growth and growth alone. Here we want to accumulate appreciating assets, and we're very conscious that growth is much more important than cash flow every single day of the week. Stage 2 is recycle, and this is where we focus on leveraging equity. We go to our broker, we refinance, we extract equity, and we reinvest that money back into the market. The idea here is to build a property portfolio and focus on total asset value, the amount of money you have playing in the market. So you buy a $700,000 property, you've got $700K in the market. You buy another $700,000 property, you've got 1.4 in the market. You want to build that number as high as you can. And the reason being 6, 7, 8% on $2 million is much greater than 6, 7, or 8% on $700,000, right? So we want to play to the law of averages. On a $7 million property portfolio, I'm making $400,000 to $500,000 every year by default. In the good years, I'm making more. In the bad years, I'm making a little bit less. Stage 3 is consolidation, and that is where we are more income focused. This is the stuff that everyone dreams about, passive income and retire early or go sit on a beach in Mexico, as I've said a few times. Can you tell I'm wanting to go to Mexico? Can't get a bloody good taco in Sydney to save your life. Actually, I lie. I went to a place called Radio Taco the other day. It was fucking great, actually. That's a big digression. Okay, so what do we do here? Here we are focused on paying down debt, but not in the way that you think. We've got a big portfolio of, say, 5 or 6 properties. We sell down half of that portfolio to cover the debt on the rest, and we either live off that income from those residential properties, or we sell down the whole portfolio. We reinvest that money into a better cash flow vehicle, such as commercial property, for example, that's paying a 6 or 7% net yield that has a 10-year lease we don't have to think about for God knows how long. And then we live off that money. At that point, we should have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of passive income coming in, debt-free. So that's the end game. But the biggest mistake you could possibly make is trying to skip straight to stage 3 when you're at stage 1. When you're in the build phase, but you're trying to consolidate. Wrong move. If your portfolio is under $2 to $3 million, you are still in the early phases. The likelihood is against a $2 or $3 million property portfolio, you're sitting on a maximum of $1 million worth of equity across that portfolio. It's just not going to be enough money for you to live off. It's not even going to be supplementary enough for you to live off. Keep building, bro. Fine, manage your cash flow effectively. You don't have to chase growth hell for leather. You can maybe look at more balanced assets, but your priority should still be capital growth. Let me give you one more set of examples just in case you don't believe me. So we've got property A, which is at a strong 6% yield and a 3% capital growth rate, purchased for $600,000 and is worth $806,000 after 10 years. That is a gain of $206,000. Whereas property B is sitting at a 4% yield and 8% capital growth. We purchased for $600,000 and is worth $1.3 million after 10 years. That's a $695,000 gain. And between the two, the difference is $443,000. Now you might say to me, JP, the other one yields worse. Okay, fine. Take $100,000 off the top. We're still $343,000 better off. Don't at me. But the message I'm really trying to get through to you here is that in the early stages, every low growth buy that you make actually delays the financial freedom you are so hoping for, you are so chasing. So my advice is to project your 10-year growth on everything that you buy and compare your total wealth that you're creating, not the rent, not the cash flow, but the total wealth and the net differences between the two. If you like, you can grab the Property Wealth Playbook, and that has full examples in there, plus all the principles I use to get to a $7 million portfolio. So yeah, that's how the $17,000 a month system actually works. It's not actually money I'm making. It's actually costing me a significant amount of money. But that's the point. That's actually how you do create the passive income. You build the wealth now, and then you get the passive income later. Delayed gratification. Google it. The next step, of course, is deciding where to start. So if you had $100,000, where do you put that today, JP? Would you play it safe or would you chase growth? Well, you probably know the answer by now. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about where I'd invest $100,000 today. Types of markets, types of locations. I think you'll like it. Click through. I'll show you exactly how I'd do it.